lasst uns mit Gebet anfangen.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
Lord, I want to thank you for bringing us through another week.
Herr, ich möchte dich danken, dass du uns durch eine weitere Woche gebracht hast.
And I also want to thank you for the guests that we have with us this night.
Und ich möchte dir auch danken für die Gäste, die wir bei uns haben diesen Abend.
And we pray also for your presence to be here,
Und wir bitten auch um deine Gegenwart, dass es hier sein mag,
that you would forgive us of all our unrighteousness,
dass du all unsere Ungerechtigkeit vergeben mögest.
cleanse us that we might receive and partake of your word,
Reinige uns, dass wir empfangen und Teil an dein Wort haben können,
that our minds and hearts may be open to receive the truth.
dass unser Verstand und unserem Herzen offen sind, um deine Wahrheit zu empfangen.
And we just want to thank you and praise you and ask this in the name of Jesus.
Und wir möchten nur danken und dich lobpreisen und wir bitten dies in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
I've got just a short study this evening,
So, es ist nur ein kurzes Studium heute Abend.
and I've just got one quote which I'll put in there. Somebody could translate it for me,
Und
please.
es gibt noch ein Zitat und das kommt in den Livestream.
Okay. So I want to begin by going to Daniel chapter 8.
Und ich möchte anfangen, indem dass wir zu Daniel Kapitel 8 gehen.
Okay, but before we read anything, I just want us to look at our line on the board.
Aber noch bevor wir irgendetwas lesen, ich möchte nur, dass wir auf unsere Linie hier auf den Tafeln anschauen.
So, over the last few weeks we've been, Scott, you need to stand back a bit so people can see. Over the last few weeks we've been looking at this principle of the past, the present and the future.
Und über die letzten paar Wochen, wir haben dieses Prinzip über der Vergangenheit, Gegenwart und Zukunft angeschaut.
And just one example, when we go to Revelation 17, John is standing at the time of the end.
Und zum Beispiel, wenn wir zur Offenbarung 17 gehen, wir wissen, dass Johannes hier zur Zeit des Endes steht.
And he's looking back into the 1260,
Und er schaut zurück auf diese 1260 hin.
right? And he's looking at the past. He's at the present, which is 1798.
Er schaut in die Vergangenheit hinein. Er steht in der Gegenwart, was für ihn in Vision ist 1798.
And we know that God is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
Wir wissen, dass Gott das Alpha und Omega ist, der Anfang und Ende ist.
That the past things demonstrate the future.
Dass die Dinge der Vergangenheit zeigen oder demonstrieren der Zukunft.
So 538 to 1798 is typifying the Sunday law to the final review,
So,
right?
538 bis 1798 schattet das Sonntagsgesetz bis zur finale Untersuchung voraus.
Okay, so the point is, when we take John, we know that the two Sunday law crises are both represented by a 1260.
So, wenn wir Johannes nehmen, wir wissen, dass die beiden Sonntagsgesetzkrisen hier beide dargestellt sind durch ein 1260.
So this illustration is to be again fulfilled when John stands at the end of the first Sunday law and he's pointing to the next Sunday law.
So diese Darstellung am Ende der ersten Sonntagsgesetz wird wieder gezeigt werden in den zweiten.
Okay, so let's go to Daniel 8,
So,
right?
lasst uns jetzt zu Daniel Kapitel 8 gehen.
Because we were going through some things earlier on this week about the United States.
Denn diese Woche haben wir einiges über den USA angeschaut.
And just keep your place in Daniel, just go to Revelation 13 and verse 11.
Und haltet den Platz hier in Daniel und geht zur Offenbarung 13, Vers 11.
And Lawrence, if you want to read that for us, please.
Yes. Just verse 11.
Yes, please, yes.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Okay, so we know that this is at the end of the 1260, right?
Also wir wissen, dass das am Ende der 1260 ist.
So therefore, the end of the 1260 is typifying the end of the first Sunday law, right?
So, daher der Ende der ersten 1260 vorausschattet das Ende der ersten Sonntagsgesetz.
And so at the end of the first Sunday law, what do we see coming up?
Und am Ende vom ersten Sonntagsgesetz, was sehen wir, was heraufkommt?
Yeah, a lamb-like beast, right?
Dieses lammähnliches Tier.
He comes up like a lamb, right?
Er kommt wie ein Lamm herauf.
And what does that mean?
Aber was heißt das?
Is he all cuddly?
Ist er knutschig?
I'm not trying to be funny, but what does it mean?
Ich versuche nicht lustig zu sein. Was heißt das?
As Christian principles.
Not like a dragon.
Well, church and state is separate.
Yeah, church and state is separated according to God's principles.
Staat und Kirche sind getrennt gemäß Gottes Prinzipien.
It's a land that has allowed God's people to preach their religion freely.
Es ist
Right?
ein Land, der erlaubt hat, Gottes Volk ihre Religion freilich zu predigen.
But in that one verse, it's got the beginning and the end,
Aber
right?
in diesem einen Vers beinhaltet es das Anfang und das Ende.
Because in the future, right, he's going to speak like a dragon,
Denn in der
right?
Zukunft wird wie ein Drache sprechen.
Okay, so I want to go to Daniel 8 and I want to show this same principles,
So,
right?
ich möchte jetzt zu Daniel 8 gehen und diesen selben Prinzipien zeigen.
Because the wheels within the wheels are lots and lots of repeating patterns,
Denn
right?
diese Rädern innerhalb von Rädern sind viele wiederholende Muster.
Sister White says when the Lord says something more than once, it's got special importance attached to it, right?
Also Ellen White sagt uns, dass wenn Gott irgendetwas wiederholt oder mehr als einmal sagt, dann ist es von besonderer Wichtigkeit.
And how does he speak to us?
Und wie spricht er zu uns? Online.
Yes, through his word, but how?
Also durch sein Wort, ja, aber wie?
Line upon line, right?
Linie auf Linie.
It's bringing lots and lots of different parts of history together, line upon lines, right?
Bringt viele verschiedene Teile der Geschichte zusammen, Linie auf Linie.
So go to Daniel 8 and verse 9.
So gehen wir zu Daniel 8 und Vers 9.
Marius, you want to read that for us, please?
Which verse?
Daniel 8 and verse 9.
He says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn which was exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land.
Okay, so here we have the first verse that marks Rome coming into play in history, right?
So, hier haben wir das erste Vers, der markiert Rom, wie es in der Geschichte auftaucht.
Right, it's where it comes out of one of those 4 horns out of Macedonia,
So, wo es aus einer von diesen 4 Hörnern aus Makedonien herauskommt.
right? It uses Macedonia as a springboard into Bible prophecy.
So,
Right?
Makedonien ist wie ein Sprungbrett in der biblische Prophetie hinein.
Okay, so so what I want to do now is let's read. In fact, let's go to Daniel chapter 11 and read another verse, and then we're going to read something about the rise of Rome.
So, lasst uns zuerst in Daniel 11 gehen. Wir werden ein weiteres Vers lesen und dann werden wir irgendetwas über das Heraufkommen von Rom lesen.
So in Daniel 11 and verse 24, please, Philip.
Vers 24.
He shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil and riches. And he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time.
So here is a prophecy about Rome.
So,
Right?
hier ist eine Prophezeiung über Rom.
And how is it going to begin? What does it say there?
Und wie wird es anfangen? Was sagt es hier?
Right, he's going to do something that everybody before him had not done, right?
So, wird irgendetwas tun, was keiner vor ihm bislang getan hat.
It says, he shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places, right?
Also wird friedlich hineingehen, sogar auf den fettesten Ländern.
Now, if you go to this quote that I posted from Daniel and Revelation by Uriah Smith.
So, wenn wir jetzt zu diesem Zitat gehen, und das ist von Daniel und der Offenbarung von Uriah Smith.
Actually, there's another one, but it's also from Daniel and Revelation. But let me just post that also. Okay, Fiora, you want to read that for us, please?
The portion that you just posted, or the portion that you posted first?
No, the first quote.
The usual manner in which nations had, before the day of Rome, entered upon valuable
Provinces.
provinces and riches and rich territory was by war and conquest. Rome was now to do what had not been done by the fathers or the fathers' fathers, namely receive these
Acquisitions.
through peaceful means.
Okay, stop right there. What do we see right there in that one line?
Was sehen wir gerade in
Or two sentences?
diese ersten zwei Sätze? Same as in Daniel 11, verse 24.
It's through peace they
Okay.
It's a time of peace. No?
Okay, right, just... Now, we've read this quote several times, right? Now, when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind was this quote, right? So that's what I'm asking. What does this bring to mind?
So, was bringt das zu unser Gedanken?
Nobody... Come on, somebody must get what this brings to mind.
Also, jemand muss,
Okay, I will refresh your memory. Go to Daniel chapter 7.
also geht zu Daniel Kapitel 7.
Okay, David, read verse 1, please.
Vers 1.
In fact, read the first 3 verses, please.
1 bis 3.
You can't? Okay, Susie, you want to read them, please?
Where are we?
Daniel 7, verses 1 to 3.
One, two, three.
1, 2, and 3, please.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens drove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from
One another.
another.
Okay, so where would we put that on our line?
So, wo würden wir das auf unsere Linie markieren?
Beginning at the Sunday,
Yes.
Right, it's at the Sunday law, right?
Fängt an Sonntagsgesetz.
So this is where you got these beasts coming up out of the sea, right?
So, hier kommen diese Tiere aus dem Meer herauf.
4 winds
Die 4 Winde,
striving, right?
die 4 Winde streben.
So up right here you got a beast rising up out of the sea. Right?
Hier ist ein Tier, der aus dem Meer emporsteigt.
Right here you got a beast rising up out of the what?
Und auch hier hast du ein Tier, der aus was emporsteigt?
The earth,
Aus
right?
der Erde.
Now let's go back and read what we just read in Daniel and Revelation 2:46.
So, lasst uns zurück und diesen Zitat nochmal lesen.
The usual manner in which nations had before the days of Rome entered upon valuable provinces and rich territory was by war and conquest. Rome was now to do what had not been done by the fathers or the fathers' fathers, namely receive these acquisitions through peaceful means. Right? What do we see?
Was sehen wir?
What was the United States typified by?
Wodurch würde den USA vorausgeschattet?
Pagan Rome, right?
Heidnische Rom.
France,
Frankreich
right? Typified it, right?
schattet es voraus.
So we spent time going through this. Rome begins like a lamb, right? And it eventually is going to speak like a dragon, right?
So, Rom fängt an wie ein Lamm und letztendlich wird wie ein Drache sprechen.
Begins as a republic, ends as a dictatorship,
Also es
right?
fängt an als eine Republik und beendet als eine Diktatur.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that Sister White, as a quote, she says, the four winds striving upon the great sea represents revolutions and conquests and wars, right?
Ellen White hat ein Zitat, wo sie sagt, die vier Winde, die aus dem Meer toben, stellt Revolutionen und Eroberungen und Kriege dar.
But when the United States comes up the earth, it comes up in a peaceful time, right?
Aber wenn der USA aus dem Erde emporsteigt, es kommt hervor während einer Zeit des Friedens.
Right? So you have the first four seals, one,
Es gibt diese ersten vier Siegel.
three, the fourth, and you come to the fifth seal, it's a time of peace.
Und das
Right?
fünfte Siegel, eine Zeit des Friedens.
So if the United States was typified by pagan Rome should come up nice and peaceful, right?
So, wenn der USA von Rom vorausgeschattet worden ist, also von heidnischer Rom, dann heidnischer Rom sollte auch in eine friedvolle Zeit hervorkommen.
Right?
Amen.
Okay, and it says that it comes up different from all the nations before it,
Und
right?
hier sagt es, dass es kommt herauf anders als alle Nationen zuvor.
And how did they come up before pagan Rome?
Wie beschreibt es, wie sie vor heidnischen Rom heraufgekommen sind, die Nationen?
What does it say?
Was sagt es?
By war and conquest,
Also
right?
durch Krieg und Eroberungen.
Right?
Amen.
Taking an illustration out of a history and it's teaching us something. It's teaching us a lesson, right? Is right to rightly divide God's word.
Es nimmt
Right?
eine Lektion aus der Geschichte und es lehrt uns was? Es lehrt uns, Gottes Wort auf rechte Weise zu zerteilen.
It says, goes on to say, the custom before unheard of was now inaugurated of kings, leaving by legacy their kingdoms to the Romans. Rome came into possession of large provinces in this manner. So, the United States, it began very small, right?
Also den USA, das hat sehr klein angefangen.
And if you look at how it rose, one state after another joined it, it became bigger and bigger and bigger, and it became this United States,
Und
right?
wenn ihr anschaut in der Geschichte, wie den USA zustande kam, es fängt klein an und es hat ein Staat nach dem anderen auf diese Art und Weise erobert, bis es zu den Vereinigten Staaten, die wir heute kennen, geworden ist.
It says, and those who thus came under the dominion of Rome derived no small advantage therefrom. They were treated with kindness and leniency. It was like having the prey and spoil distributed among them. They were protected from their enemies and rested in peace and safety under the aegis of the Roman power. Right? This is how they began. Right?
So fingen sie an.
So they have these lamb-like republican qualities.
Also die haben diese lammähnliche republikanische Qualitäten.
And when the United States comes up in 1798, it's a republican nation,
Und
right?
wenn der USA hier in 1798 hervorkommt, es kommt als eine republikanische Nation hervor.
Right? Has a three-form government, just like the pagan Rome had beforehand, right?
Es hat eine dreifaltige Regierung, genauso wie heidnische Rom eine zuvor hat.
Okay, so we can see how the history and rise of pagan Rome was typifying the history and rise of the United States of America.
So, die Geschichte und das Hervorkommen von heidnischen Rom schattete die Geschichte und das Hervorkommen von den USA.
Go to Daniel 8 and verse 10.
Gehen wir zu Daniel 8 und Vers 10 jetzt.
It says, and it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and the stars to the ground, and it stamped upon them. Yet he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So Rome that began like a lamb, as it goes on, it becomes more aggressive, right?
So Rom, der als Lamm angefangen hat, so wie es so weiter durch die Geschichte geht, es wird mehr und mehr offensiv.
especially against Christians,
Besonders gegen Christen.
right? So, and in verse 11, the first part of verse 11 says, "Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host." Right?
Das erste Teil von Vers 11 gelesen.
What point in time is that?
So welche Zeit ist das? Cross.
It's the cross,
Das
right?
ist das Kreuz.
You know that right here marks the cross, right?
Wir wissen, dass gerade hier das Kreuz markiert.
Okay? So, and it says, "Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him, or through him, the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down." Who is this speaking about?
Vers 11. Über wen spricht das?
What's happening here in this verse?
Was geschieht hier in diesem Vers?
Konstantin.
It's Constantine, right?
Das ist Konstantin.
And what does Constantine do?
Und was tut er?
What's it?
He moves the seat.
No, not yet. What does he do? What does he do first?
Also was tut er zuerst?
In order, please. Otherwise, it's confusing.
Implements Christianity.
Yes, he gives up, or he claims to give up his pagan religion, right?
Also er behauptete, seinem heidnischen Religion aufzugeben.
But the daily is not really taken away. What does these words really mean?
Aber das Tägliche ist nicht wirklich weggenommen. Was heißen diese Wörter, wenn wir sie recht verstehen?
It's lifted up and exalted,
Es
right?
ist hochgehoben und geehrt.
Because the kings now take hold of Roman Catholicism, which is just a more glorified version of paganism, and he lifts it up and exalts it, right?
Denn die Könige von Europa oder die Könige von der damaligen Welt, die nehmen diesen Katholismus, was nur eine glorifizierte Version von heidnischen Rom ist, und sie erheben es und verherrlichen es.
Okay, so now we come to this point. When he does that, right? At which point in time does this take place?
Und wenn er das tut, und das ist hier in diesem Vers, zu welcher Zeit in der Geschichte findet das statt?
Okay, I'll just take you back. Go back to back to Daniel 11 and verse 24.
Gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 11 und Vers 24.
Because the prophecy in Daniel 11:24 tells us
Denn diese Prophezeiung in Daniel 11, Vers 24 gibt uns den Antwort.
right? So let's read it again. It says, "He shall enter peaceably even upon the farthest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, the spoil, and the riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time." What is a time?
Was ist in ein Zeit?
360 years.
1 year, right?
Also es ist ein Jahr,
Which is 360 days.
was 360 Tage
A
ist.
day for a year, 360 years,
Und
right?
ein Tag für ein Jahr, das ist 360 Jahre.
When did that time begin?
So, wann hat diese Zeit angefangen?
What marked that time beginning?
Was hat diese Zeit oder was markierte das Anfang von dieser Zeit?
The Battle of Actium, right?
Also der Kampf um Actium.
So let's write that here, right? Battle of Actium, right? What sort of battle was the Battle of Actium?
So, was für ein Kampf war dieses Kampf um Actium?
It was a naval battle,
Das
right?
war ein Meereskrieg,
Okay,
Meereskampf.
so it was ships against ships,
Es
right?
war Schiffe gegen Schiffe.
Right? So, naval battle, right? And that was in 31 BC.
Und das war in 31 vor Christus.
This is the beginning of the prophetic rule of the Romans, right?
Das ist der Anfang von der prophetischen Regierung der Römer.
And they were to rule for 360 years, right?
Und die sollten für 360 Jahren regieren.
Now, when John, if you take the reform line now, right?
Also wenn wir diese Reformlinie nehmen,
Which waymark is John standing on?
so an welche Wegmarke steht Johannes hier? Which reform line do you want?
If you take the reform
The
line,
final reform line.
just the reform line, right? The reform line's got a structure, right? 7 thunders. This is it right here. So
Okay.
you take the reform line. Which waymark is John standing on?
Also wenn du das Reformlinie nimmst, zu welcher Wegmarke steht Johannes?
He's in the book of Revelation, right? And he's in Revelation 10. So which waymark is he standing on?
708.
August 11th, 1840, right?
Das ist das 11. August 1840,
Revelation 10, right?
Offenbarung 10,
Where Christ comes down, right?
wo Christus kommt herab.
And what is it? What was this prefiguring
Und was hat das vorausgeschattet
in our time?
in unserer Zeit?
9/11, right?
11. September.
Okay, let's see. If any bells going off yet? Are we getting anybody making any connections?
So, lasst uns sehen, ob jemand Verbindungen hier macht.
Economic.
Right, make your point.
Battle of Actium was an economic war because it was between ships.
Right, the Battle of Actium was. What are ships in the Bible? What are ships in Bible
Also
prophecy?
der Kampf um Actium war ein Wirtschaftskrieg, weil Schiffe stellen Wirtschaft dar und dann wird die Frage gestellt, was stellen Schiffe dar?
What the ships represent in Bible prophecy?
Der hat schon geantwortet.
Okay.
Ja,
Right.
He answered it.
Okay, but he said it real quick. I'm asking everybody on the floor, right?
Nature.
It represents the economic structure of the world, right?
So, es stellt das Economic, also so das Wirtschaftssystem der Welt dar.
So we know that at 9/11, the economic structure of the world nearly got, or came under attack. Let's say.
Wir
that.
wissen, dass die Wirtschaftsstruktur der Welt am 11. September kam unter Beschuss.
Right. The Twin Towers was the World Trade Center,
Also
right?
diese Zwillingstürme in New York, das war der Welthandelszentrum.
Okay. So you see when you bring line upon line together, right? You have 9/11 marking the beginning of a naval battle that marks the rise of the United States in this time of peace,
So wir
right?
können sehen, Linie auf Linie, dass der 11. September ist in derselbe Linie wie dieser Wirtschaftskampf oder Krise, der markiert hier das Heraufkommen den USA zu einer Zeit des Friedens.
Okay, and it's marked by these 360 years, right?
Das ist durch diese 360 Jahre markiert.
So, pagan Rome began like a lamb, rising up in a time of peace, but we know that pagan Rome ended as a dictatorship, right?
So wir wissen, dass heidnische Rom fing an als ein Lamm zur Zeit des Friedens, aber wir wissen, dass es sich zu seinem Ende eine Diktatur wird.
The United States began in 1798 as a lamb, and we see that this dictator is just about to speak, right?
Also wir sehen, dass den USA in 1798 heraufkam wie ein Lamm, aber wir stehen gerade kurz davor, wie wir diese Diktator in den USA steht kurz davor zu sprechen.
Okay, Lance.
Just remembered one point that would, this is another point that just came to my mind that would somehow contradict it. But one point that would contribute is because it was the Battle of Actium was between Mark Antony and Octavius Augustus.
Caesar.
Yes. So and
Internal war.
he became Caesar Augustus.
Yes.
And Caesar Augustus was then, he basically ushered in this glorious era of Rome,
Yes.
where they really prospered and became
Yes.
this wealthy, prosperous nation.
Yes, yes.
Also dieser Kampf hier am Actium, das war zwischen Mark Antony und Augustus. Und Augustus, der wurde dann Kaiser und hat diese goldene Ära der Wirtschaft in Rom eingeführt.
The only point is, I think he was already the first dictator, if I remember correctly.
Ich glaube, wenn ich mich recht erinnere, dass Augustus war der erste Diktator.
Yeah,
Wie bitte?
Alright, Julius.
Yes. But it doesn't matter. You see all the points that are marking this, right? We're not going to go deep into the history, right? Because the whole history of Rome was a history of bloodshed, and that we're going to take that history and say that that contradicts what we're trying to show. That's just silly, right?
Also wenn wir die gesamte Geschichte von Rom nehmen würden und da tief hineingehen, wir können sehen, dass Rom ist gebaut auf eine Geschichte von Blutvergießen, und wenn wir jede Einzelheit dessen nehmen und hier hineinfügen, wir wollen denn da sagen, dass das widerspricht, dass hier den USA in eine Zeit des Friedens aufkommt.
You know,
Das wäre denn nicht richtig.
people get upset with me when I say that they're narrow-minded, but we are really narrow-minded. You got to, symbols can have more than one signification, right?
Also Menschen würden beleidigt, wenn ich sage, dass wir engstirnig sind, aber wir sind wirklich engstirnig. Symbole können mehr als eine Bedeutung haben.
So we're not taking Rome in individual little bits here. We're taking Rome as a complete history. We're looking at its rise to its finale, and we're taking the bits that mark the beginning and the end, and we're seeing a pattern. Right?
Also
That's
wir
what we're
nehmen
looking at.
nicht heidnische Rom hier in alle seine kleinen Details und versuchen das mit den USA zu paaren, sondern wir schauen, wie es in die Geschichte heraufkommt und wie es in der Geschichte beendet worden ist, das Anfang und Ende, und wir machen das gleich mit den USA.
Okay, so we started here, and the end of the 360 years takes us to 330 BC, 330 AD. Sorry.
Also wir haben hier angefangen 31 vor Christus, und 360 Jahre später bringt uns zu 330 nach Christus.
Okay, and 330 would mark the last bit of Daniel 8 and verse 11. It says the place of the sanctuary was cast down.
Und 330 würde denn Daniel 8,11, also der Ort seinem Sanctuary, der Ort seinem Heiligtum würde niedergeworfen.
Okay, that's basically where Constantine, who became a Catholic, right, gave up his religion, and he forfeited the place of Rome and moved it to Constantinople.
Das ist, wo Konstantin seine Religion aufgab, und er hat Rom nach Konstantinopel verlegt.
Sure.
It says in Daniel 11, verse 29 and 30.
Yeah, we're coming there in a moment, so just hold that thought. Just before you read that, because it's the next thing after this quote. Sandra, read the next quote, please.
Das nächste Zitat lesen wir.
How does it start?
The seat.
There's only 2 quotes there.
The seat of government was removed by Constantine in AD 330 to Constantinople. The same transaction is brought to view in Revelation 14:3, where it is said that the dragon, pagan Rome, gave to the beast papal Rome his seat, the city of Rome.
Okay, so basically, Uriah Smith here, he takes Constantine and he parallels it to when pagan Rome gives its power, or gives its, because it marks in Revelation 13 that pagan Rome gives its power, seat and great authority to the papacy, right? So it's paralleling this event right here, right?
So, Uriah Smith nimmt dieses Ereignis hier und stellt es gleich mit Offenbarung 13, wenn heidnische Rom den Papst seinen Sitz und Macht und Thron gibt.
Right? See that? Because basically when Constantine becomes a Catholic, it's marking the point where the Protestants give up their faith and become Catholics. Right?
So, der Punkt, wo Konstantin Katholik wird, ist markiert der Punkt, wo die Protestanten ihren Glauben aufgeben und katholisch werden.
Right? Okay, you want to make your point now, Daniel 11?
Ja.
So Daniel 11, Vers 29 oder 28, 29? 29 und 30.
Says, and the time appointed, which is 330 AD,
Yes.
he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. That's basically 330 where he moved the seat, right?
Yes.
And then verse 30 it says, for the ships of Kittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant, so shall he do. He shall even return and have indignation with them that forsake the
Intelligence.
holy covenant. Yeah, intelligence. With them that forsake the holy covenant.
So what does it do there with those two verses?
So mit diesen zwei Versen, was tut es hier?
It ties Clovis and Constantine together,
Es
right?
verbindet Chlodwig und Konstantin zusammen.
This is, if you look at this fractal right there, and take the two Sunday-law prices and parallel with the Sunday-law to the final review.
Also wenn du diese zwei Sonntagsgesetzkrisen parallel stellst mit der Sonntagsgesetz bis zur finalen Untersuchung,
The second Sunday-law lines up with the midnight cry.
das zweite Sonntagsgesetz würde dann gleich mit der Mitternachtsruf stehen.
Right, what's your point?
Let's do a different fractal. This would line up with the 6th hour if you take it from the midnight cry to the final review.
Yes, the midnight cry is parallel on the 6th hour, right? So that's
Also
what
der
it is.
Mitternachtsruf ist dann gleich mit einer kleineren Fraktal mit der 6. Stunde.
The
Right.
final review is the 9th hour, which is a close of probation.
Und der finale Untersuchung ist der 9. Stunde, was der Schluss der Gnadenzeit wäre.
Yes, and if you, from that point forward, basically the 7 last plagues are falling. Right?
Von this point,
Yes,
Von
from the
diesem
9th
Punkt
hour
an-
when Christ says it is done, the 7 last plagues are falling.
von
Yes,
diesem
yes.
Punkt an, wo Christus sagt, es ist vollbracht, die 7 letzten Plagen fallen.
These are the basically the plagues that are falling upon them, and they make them angry, so they make a death decree at the 6th hour.
So, die Plags kommen auf sie herab und das macht sie zornig und deswegen machen sie ein Todesdekret hier zur 6. Stunde.
Here you see the ships of Kittim come against them, and that's why they get angry and go against God's people.
Und hier können wir sehen, dass die Schiffe von Kittim gegen sie kommen und das ist das, was sie zornig macht. Und sie machen ein Todesdekret gegen Gottes Volk.
Point out, Lord, thought that I need to bring forth is that these ships of Kittim are these 7 last plagues that basically make them angry to go against God's people.
Und das, was diese Schiffe zornig machen, die gegen Gottes Volk gehen, ist diese 7 letzten Plagen.
Yeah, but just hold your horses there just one moment, right? So, okay, Daniel 11, 29 and 30, they're tying the two histories together. The papacy receiving an army from Clovis and Constantine becoming a Catholic. It's working the same point in time, right?
So, Daniel 11, Vers 29 und 30 ist markiert der Papst, der seine Armeen von Chlodwig bekommt und Konstantin Möwen ist
Becoming Catholic.
Konstantin, der katholisch wird, bindet diese zwei Ereignisse zusammen.
So, it marks the repeat of the Sunday law, right?
Das markiert der Wiederholung des Sonntagsgesetzes.
Okay, so now let's look, because it says the ships of Kittim come against them. Why did the ships of Kittim come against them?
Jetzt sagt es hier, dass diese Kittim-Schiffe gegen ihn kommen.
Because he made a Sunday law.
Und die Frage wird gestellt, warum? Und der Antwort ist, weil sie ein Sonntagsgesetz gemacht haben.
It's not the ships of Kittim that cause him to do that. It's the ships of Kittim are the trumpet powers punishing pagan Rome, right?
Also die Kittim-Schiffe sind die heidnische römische Mächte, die die Posaunenmächte, die den Papst bestrafen.
So, what Führer's trying to mark, he's putting the ships of Kittim prior to the papacy would be correct, but I'm not going there. I'm dealing with Constantine at this point, right?
So, was Fjodor versucht zu tun, ist diese Kittim-Schiffe vor der Papst zu stellen, und das wäre an sich richtig, aber dahin möchte ich jetzt nicht gehen, sondern wir behandeln jetzt mit Konstantin.
Because the trumpet powers are a punishment upon Rome, because it basically is marking church and state coming together with Constantine.
Die
Right?
Posaunenmächte sind eine Bestrafung gegen Rom, gegen Konstantin, weil Staatsmacht und Kirchen zusammenkommen.
Right? It's the Sunday law,
Das ist
right?
das Sonntagsgesetz.
So when Constantine moves his capital, it's marking the end of this time, right?
Also wenn Konstantin seine Hauptstadt verlegt, es markiert das Ende von dieser Zeit.
Right?
Amen.
And okay, now go to back to Daniel 8.
Gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 8.
Maybe I missed something. Yep, sorry. Now excuse me, don't go to Daniel 8 yet. Go to Revelation 8.
Also stattdessen gehen wir zur Offenbarung 8.
I just see number 8 and I think it's Daniel, but it's Revelation. Revelation 8 and verse 12.
Offenbarung 8 und Vers 12.
So, when Constantine makes this Sunday law, how many pagan powers come against him?
Also als Konstantin dieses
Or
Sonntagsgesetz,
how many barbarian trumpets come against him?
also als Konstantin dieses Sonntagsgesetz erlässt, wie viele barbarische Länder kommen gegen ihn? Wie viele Posaunenmächte kommen gegen ihn?
4, right?
4.
We have this 1, 2, the third, and then we have the fourth, right?
Hier haben wir sie.
And all I'm going to deal with is the fourth, right?
Und alles, womit ich mich beschäftigen möchte, hier ist das 4.
Because it says, and the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. So as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. What is this marking?
Was markiert das hier in Vers 12?
Shaking of the heavens and the earth, right?
Das ist die Erschütterung der Himmel und Erde.
But what happened literally in history?
Aber in der Geschichte, buchstäblich, was geschah?
Government.
Yeah, but what sort of government?
Threefold system.
Right, the threefold system of the Republic of Rome collapsed,
Also
right?
das dreifaltige System von der Republik von Rom ist zusammengefallen.
Okay, now God demonstrates the end by the beginning, right?
Gott zeigt das Ende von Anfang hier.
So, when you take this illustration, right?
Also wenn wir diese Darstellungen hier nehmen
Right? And take it and lay it upon top of this illustration,
und wir legen dies auf dies hier,
what do you have right at the end?
was hast du gerade an der Ende? USA coming up in a time of peace.
No, that's the beginning. What do you have at the end? That's in this time. Taking this illustration and laying on top here, what do you have at the end?
Also wir nehmen diese Darstellung hier und legen es hier rauf. Was haben wir am Ende?
The punishment, right? What's the punishment?
Die Bestrafung. 7 Seal.
It's written on the board. All those things are right, but let's deal with what we're dealing with. I'm trying to show something.
This barbarians.
9/11.
Right there, we placed it there. It's right at the end, right?
Parallel with some of the barbarians.
Look, the barbarians are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The end. That's why we read the fourth one, right? So the fourth one is marking the shaking of the heavens and earth. And I spent the last couple of days going through shaking of the earth, shaking of the heavens and the earth, right? Yes? We were showing that the shaking of the heavens and the earth is prefigured here at this waymark.
Wir haben gezeigt, dass der Erschütterung der Himmel und der Erde vorausgeschattet wird an diese Wegmarke.
Right?
Amen.
So when you take this pattern and you lay it on this pattern, right? And as Führer said, it's the 7 plagues and all the rest of it. But the point that I want to make, you have 9/11s,
Es
right?
ist richtig, dass hier die 7 Plagen und so weiter ist, aber der Punkt, den ich machen möchte, ist, dass hier der 11. September markiert ist.
Right?
I mean, the fourth trumpet was the barbarians.
Yes, but this, what I'm talking about, I'm not denying it's the barbarians, but what I'm marking right here, right? Okay, at the end of the 1260, what is marked in Revelation 17?
Am Ende von der 1260, was ist in Offenbarung 17 markiert?
No, I'm not even going to go there.
One
The
of
10
those
kings, right? They come up and eat their flesh and burn it with fire. Did we go through this? Daniel 11:40,
10
right?
Könige kommen herauf und essen ihrem Fleisch und brennen sie mit Feuer.
So who did that at the end of the 1260?
So, am Ende von der 1260, wer hat das getan?
France, right?
Frankreich.
And when France did that, right? Who rose up?
So, als Frankreich das tat, wer ist heraufgekommen?
Napoleon, right?
Napoleon.
Okay. So Napoleon. What did we read a quote the other day? What did it say about what did the people want?
So, Napoleon. Wir haben ein Zitat vor einige Tage gelesen und was hat es gesagt? Was wollte das Bevölkerung haben?
Government of the people.
A government of the people, for the people, by the people.
So, eine Regierung von das Volk, für das Volk, durch das Volk.
Which is a type of the United States, right?
Was ein Typus ist für den USA.
So I'm not putting 9/11 there because I'm dealing with Islam. I'm putting 9/11 there because it marks the shaking of the heavens and the earth, and that's what we were looking at the last few days.
Also
right?
ich markiere 11. September da nicht, um Islam da zu markieren, sondern weil es markiert die Erschütterung der Himmel und der Erde. Und das ist gerade das, was wir in den letzten paar Tagen angeschaut haben.
And we know that both those powers, because you went through it in the class, are both there marking this thing at the same time, right?
Und wir wissen, dass beide von diesen Mächten gleichzeitig da dieses selbe Ding markieren. Which powers?
The Islam and the internal revolution that takes
Okay,
place.
beide Mächte da sind das Islam und diese interne Mächte, also diese Bevölkerung, die eine Revolution, also Napoleon.
Right. So, we see the point that I'm making with Constantine.
So kann jeder den Punkt sehen, die ich mit Konstantin hier
Okay.
machen möchte.
Now, just go back to Daniel 8 and verse 11.
So, gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 8 und Vers 11.
It says, "Yeah, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily was taken away." Right? So, what did Constantine do?
So, was hat Konstantin hier getan?
Dividing the daily sacrifices.
No, just based upon the bit I read. He was the one that removed paganism and replaced it with Catholicism, right?
Er war derjenige, der das Heidentum weggetan hat und es hat es ersetzt mit Katholizismus.
Now go to Daniel 8 and verse 12.
Jetzt gehen wir zu Vers 12.
Right? It says, "And a host was given him against the daily by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and it prospered." Who is this?
Wer ist das hier?
It's Clovis,
Das
right?
war Chlodwig.
What is Clovis doing?
Was tut Chlodwig?
He's taken away the daily.
Er nimmt das Tägliche weg.
Clovis is a type of the United States, right?
Chlodwig ist ein Typus für das USA.
You have both Constantine and Clovis, both typifying the United States, taking away the daily, right?
So, sowohl Konstantin als auch Chlodwig schatten den USA voraus, indem dass sie beide das Tägliche wegnehmen.
But what I'm trying to get you to understand, it's no accident that, first of all, so if we start off like, we just draw a line, right? Let's just do this. I'm not sure if there's a gap, but let's try it. But you have Rome, right?
Also hier ist Rom.
No, let's not. Yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's take this down a minute. This is Constantine,
Also
right?
das hier ist Konstantin.
And he takes away the daily,
Und er nimmt das tägliche weg.
right? And he gets punished for that, right? And he comes to his demise at the end, right?
Und wird
Rome
da
falls.
durch bestraft und er kommt zu seinem Sturz hier, wenn Rom zu Fall kommt.
So that would be like the Sunday law
So das wäre dann das Sonntagsgesetz oder wie das Sonntagsgesetz
to the final review,
bis
right?
zur finale Untersuchung.
Right? So immediately you have now Clovis takes away the daily, right?
Und sobald hat man Chlodwig, der das tägliche wegnimmt.
Right? And we know that this is marking a point leading up to we know that Daniel 11:31 all mark that one point, right? 538 to 1798, right? Although they were at different times, prophetically it's all marking being done at the Sunday law, right?
Obwohl das alles zu verschiedenen Zeiten in der Geschichte stattfand, prophetisch markiert das alles der Sonntagsgesetz.
Okay, now tell me, what do we see in Daniel 8?
So, jetzt zeig mir, was sehen wir in Daniel 8?
Two Sunday laws,
Zwei
right?
Sonntagsgesetze.
First one by Constantine, second one by Clovis,
Das
right?
erste durch Konstantin, das zweite durch Chlodwig.
And they're both showing us the same thing.
Und die beide zeigen uns dasselbe Geschichte.
But when you put them like this,
Aber
right?
wenn wir sie so auslegen,
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. This one, third would be the end. What do you now have?
was hat man hier? Seven trumpets.
Yeah, you have all the 7 trumpets, right?
Du hast die 7 Posaunen.
And the 7 trumpets, what do they typify?
Und die 7 Posaunen, was schatten sie voraus?
The 7 last
Die
plagues,
7 letzten Plagen.
right? So we know the Sunday law crisis is typifying the 7 last plagues,
So, wir
right?
wissen, dass der Sonntagsgesetzkrise die 7 letzten Plagen vorausschattet.
Right? So from the Sunday law right up until the close of probation, which deals with the whole reform line, right?
Vom Sonntagsgesetz bis zur Schluss der Gnadenzeit, was das ganze Reformlinie beinhält,
The 7 trumpets typify the 7 last plagues.
die 7 Posaunen schatten die 7 letzten Plagen voraus.
But we know that this is a parallel to this and this is a parallel to this, so they're really, both those things are taking place simultaneously.
Aber wir wissen, dass das ein Parallel ist zu das, sowohl wie das zu das. Also wir wissen, dass beide von diesen Dingen gleichzeitig stattfinden.
Right?
Amen.
We need to be students of prophecy and study these things very closely, right?
Also wir müssen Studenten der Prophetie sein und diese Dinge sehr nah betrachten.
Right?
Amen.
I've never seen such a sorry bunch, I tell you. It's painful to look at people's faces when you're standing here. They look like they want to throw stones at me.
Is it possible that we write down 321 then in the first one?
321. You're talking about for the Sunday law.
Yes.
Well, 321 was the first Sunday law. Yes, that's correct.
321, das ist richtig.
But I'm not putting them in a chronology here. I'm just taking the points that they are representing and laying them on a line.
Aber hier versuchen wir nicht eine Chronologie darzulegen, sondern einfach die Punkte auf eine Linie markieren.
Right?
Amen.
Because Daniel, I mean, just to show you this point for Margaret's sake, go to Daniel 11:31 and then we'll close.
Geht zu Daniel 11, Vers 31.
Right. So in Daniel 11:31, it says, "An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary, strength shall take away the daily, and they shall place the abomination, make it desolate." How many histories are in that one verse?
So, wie viele Geschichten befinden sich hier in diesem einen Vers?
3, right?
3.
496, arm stands on his part. 508 takes away the daily, and 538 places the abomination and makes it desolate. Right?
Also 496, also die Waffen stehen ihm zur Seite. 508, das tägliche wird weggenommen, und 538, der Papst wird auf den Thron gesetzt.
But when you read this at the end of the world, all 3 of those events are marking the same point in time, it's marking the Sunday law crisis.
Aber wenn du das am Ende der Welt liest, alle 3 von diesen Ereignissen finden zur selben Zeitpunkt statt, nämlich das Sonntagsgesetzkrise.
Okay, so Constantine making a Sunday law in 321 is a standalone point in time that you take out of its context and place it the Sunday law. Right?
So, Konstantin, der ein Sonntagsgesetz um 321 macht, das ist eine für sich alleinstehende Geschichte, die man herausnimmt und am Sonntagsgesetz markiert.
Okay, but the fulfillment of the prophecy in 330, where he moves to Constantine, is also marking the same point in time prophetically, right? 330.
Aber als er seinen Hauptsitz von Rom nach Konstantinopel versetzt, das markiert derselbe Zeit prophetisch hier.
Okay.
Also in the time of Constantine, we made a study with Lawrence, and the day was taken away in 324. So, but marking the same point. I mean, different. Sunday law is 321, daily taking away 324, but marking the same point as 508.
Yes,
538.
they're all individual points that you take out and think, what's this representing? It's the Sunday law. What's this representing? It's the Sunday law, right? You're not putting them in a chronology, right? Otherwise, we may as well just throw the Bible in the bin, right? Yes? You understand now? Okay. Okay. For me, that's a very deep and very nice truth, but I don't know that everybody else appreciates it yet, but you should study that out, right?
Also für mich ist das eine sehr tief und schöne Wahrheit, aber noch bin ich nicht sicher, ob jeder es begriffen hat.
Okay.
Wir sollten das auch studieren.
But the point that I want to make is all these little pieces of information, they're all making up the big puzzle, right? And without the right pieces of information, you're going to come to the wrong conclusions.
All diese kleinen Teile von Informationen, die machen das gesamte Bild aus, und ohne diese kleinen Teile an ihrem richtigen Platz markiert, da werden wir zu falschen Schlussfolgerungen kommen.
Okay. Right? If nobody's got any points, let us close with a ring of prayer.
So, wenn keiner